Hi guys, what's the crack? Hope you're all well. This is Finding Yourself, the podcast series dedicated to movie, TV, sports and gaming. I'm your host Cal Duffy, and in today's video I kind of wanted to give you a list of movies and TV shows that I've watched this past year and really loved and would highly recommend. I was going to see movies a lot more this year because, as you know, I'm doing a lot of reviews on CRC FM on the radio. Also for the podcast as well, I review movies and TV shows that I watch and binge watch. There's 3 movies in particular I want to talk about in this video, as well as 2 TV shows that I think you should binge watch up online. They're both available to stream on different platforms. So let's get into it. The first movie I want to talk about is Free Guy, starring Ryan Reynolds, Taika Waititi, Joe Carey from Stranger Things, and Jodie Comer from Killing Eve. I loved this movie. I went to go see it in the cinema with my girlfriend. I actually think it was the first movie I saw back in the cinemas since lockdown had hit, and it was definitely worth the trip because everything about this movie worked for me. First of all, the cast, obviously amazing, very talented cast. You had Ryan Reynolds, who can sell anything at this stage. He's so charismatic, such a likable actor, and talented actor as well, obviously. You had Joe Carey from Stranger Things, whose career is taking off ever since he put in a great performance in that show. And you also had Jodie Comer, who is taking off as well and is being cast in more movies ever since she kind of broke out on her own with the show Killing Eve. This movie's cast pulled off a great performance. Everything worked. The chemistry was there. The performances were there, in my opinion, as well. The concept for this movie was so unique, in my opinion, and it did such a good job at not isolating members of their audience, which was a real danger of happening because Free Guy as a movie leans very heavily into the gaming world. And this could have isolated or alienated audience members who aren't gamers, older audience members who don't get the lingo or the terminology. But I think it worked. It wasn't too highfalutin in the language, and it wasn't alienating in the monologues talking about gaming and giving all these terms. There was one term said in the whole movie that I had to maybe explain, or you would have to explain to someone who wasn't an avid gamer, and that's NPC, which is non-player character. I remember giving this review on CRC, and that's the only term I had to explain in my review. Other than that, I thought Free Guy didn't talk down to their audience members. There was something there for everyone. There was something there for people who loved action. There was something there for people who love comedies, for people who love a great looking movie. You know, the cinematography was excellent in this movie. It was very slick looking, very colourful. Everything looked beautiful in this movie. And there was also something for rom-com lovers as well. You know, it had all the elements for a successful movie in Free Guy. You had the rom-com element, a love triangle basically. You had great comedy and great action from Ryan Reynolds and Joe Carey in this movie. You had a very entertaining villain with Taika Waititi, who was likable and hateable at the same time. Taika Waititi walks that line very well. You know, he's ridiculous in this movie. He's over the top sometimes in his behaviour, but he's a realistic villain. And I love that about this movie as well. So I just think this movie hits on all different levels. And it gave itself the best chance to be successful in the way that it didn't isolate one audience member or one group in this audience. It gave itself the best chance to be loved by every audience member who went to go see it. I'd love to know your thoughts on Free Guy if you went to go to see it. What element of this movie spoke to you? Was it the gaming side of it? Was it the rom-com, the action, the way the movie looked? Was it the soundtrack? Because if so, you've good taste in music. I think Fantasy by Mariah Carey must have been played 100 times by myself and Leanne after we went to go see this movie. I think her sales on Spotify must have boosted straight after Free Guy because it just idolizes that song in this movie. And I think Jodie Comer actually recorded her own rendition of this movie for the soundtrack. There's a scene near the end of the movie where Fantasy is playing in the background, but it's Jodie Comer singing it, and it's very somber, it's very sad, but uplifting at the same time. And I remember listening to her rendition on YouTube of Fantasy for this movie after I went to go see it, maybe 100 times. But yeah, I would definitely recommend go seeing Free Guy. It's actually available to stream now online on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, definitely give it a watch if you didn't get to see it in the cinema. I definitely recommend it. The next movie I want to talk about is James Bond, No Time to Die. I personally didn't know what to expect with this movie. Well, actually, that's not true. I knew what to expect in terms of what I was going to go see. I just didn't know how I would react to the movie. I'm not a huge James Bond fan. I haven't watched all of Daniel Craig's performances as James Bond throughout the years. I think I watched the first two films. The last James Bond movie I watched all the way through with Daniel Craig, besides No Time to Die, was I think Quantum Solace or Casino Royale. It was the movie where Mads Mikkelsen was the main villain. That's the last James Bond movie I saw all the way through. And from what I've heard on the lead up to this movie, before I saw it, people like Daniel Craig's performance as James Bond. It's very energetic, he's very suave in it, but he's able to do the parkour stuff. He has that roughage about him that a modern spy would have as well. And he's played James Bond for multiple films now, and this was his last role in this movie, his last performance and appearance as James Bond. And I think a lot of people were wondering, okay, is this James Bond done now? Are they done with this character? Is this, the last revival of the character? Are they going to retire him after this? There was a lot of speculation online as to who would take over the role and who people wanted to see in the role. One name that was batted around a lot was Idris Elba, which in my opinion would have been a great shout for the next James Bond, because Idris Elba is such a talented actor. He's a great character actor as well. He has that ability to play a suave character, but has that edginess as well. If anyone has seen him in the TV show Luther, he is so amazing in that show. He plays a corrupt cop, and he has that edginess and anger in his character. In the first scene in that TV show, he breaks a door apart, and you can see he's dangerous in that TV show as Luther. And I think he would have brought that performance into James Bond as well. I think Idris Elba, again, that's my backing, or would have been my backing for the next James Bond. Overall, I loved No Time to Die. I thought everything worked. The action was amazing. Cinematography was beautiful and very somber at times. The character actors in this movie, top notch. I thought Daniel Craig was excellent as always. He pulled off a brilliant last performance. It was a perfect send off for Daniel Craig as an actor, because he's put in such a long haul as James Bond and held that torch very well, in my opinion. Rami Malek played the antagonist in this movie, and I thought he did an excellent job. It was very subtle and very purposeful, his role in this movie. There was no bullshit about him. There wasn't any long dialogues and monologues of, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take over the world. There was no cliches of a Bond villain in this movie. It was a very natural role and a very natural performance from Rami Malek, and a realistic performance of a war-hungry criminal in this movie. Fully recommend going to see No Time to Die if you can in the cinemas. It's a very entertaining movie, and seeing in the cinema, it's a different experience. So if you do see it in the cinema, I hope you enjoy it. And if you have seen this movie, I'd love to know your thoughts on it. Were you a fan of Daniel Craig's portrayal as James Bond? Was this movie everything you'd hoped it would be for Daniel Craig's last performance as James Bond? I'd love to know your thoughts. Finally, I'd like to talk about No Way Home, Spiderman. Such a great movie. It's going to be a quick review because I have nothing bad to say about it. I am not a huge Marvel fan, but I went to go see it with my sister, who is. It was so satisfying. This movie hits on all different levels, and if you're a Spider-Man fan, you will love this movie. They really cater to their fans in this movie. There is no punches held or no punches pulled in this movie at all. Definitely go to see it. I definitely recommend it. Going to see it in the cinema is a different experience because you have other people's reactions to it as well, and you're watching it together, you're going through the experience together. Overall, these three movies were 10 out of 10s for me. I definitely recommend seeing them if you haven't already. And really quickly, two TV shows that were 10 out of 10s for me this year were Dopesick and F is Her Family. F is Her Family is a raunchy animated series available up on Netflix. There's 5 seasons, and Dopesick is available up on Disney Plus, and it follows the Oxycontin breakout in America.